in terms of culture, there's just so many different structures. Like, so coming from like the South Asian, particularly the Punjabi community, being part of the diaspora here, it's always grappling with not only like size but also color, which is an important discussion that needs to be had, but I don't think people are completely ready for that conversation. Like, even when having these discussions on what racialization means and the impact of race on the way we move within society, people usually forget about colorism. So when I was younger, like I was darker, and then so there was practices of like skin lightening, being done. And then a lot of that was informed by these larger cultural practices. You're not light enough, therefore you're not pretty enough. You're not thin enough, therefore you're not pretty enough. Like, and so when I think about these notions of beauty, attractiveness, and its attachment to, like, for instance, like the female body or like the femme body, it's always going back to this, like, are you feminine enough? How are you presenting yourself as feminine enough? So that has always been a part of it. Like, are you doing things? A lot of the dialogue, let's say, like, oh, like girls don't do that. Like, oh, that's a boy thing to do. Like, these are dialogues that actually happen within the community. And half the time, like, even now, like, it's something till day, like, I'm just struggling with. Because now it's just like, oh, you're 31. You're not married yet. You should lose weight. Then you'll find a husband. So there's so much of that informing the way, like, I've now at home with my gender identity, where I could be like, yeah, like, I'm a proud femme person. Take it as it is. Like, I'm on my own trajectory. I'm on my own journey to do what I want. But back in the day, if you had asked me like 10 years ago, I would have been like part of that system and okay with it to a certain extent, because that's just what I knew. And I think a lot of that also says, like, having access to the knowledge. I think academia has certain parts of academia, of course. The people that I've worked with, like, I've had professors who've had these conversations on these connections between, like, race and gender, disability and gender, fatness and gender. Like, these people were the ones informing me and broadening my understanding of the body and embodiment. And I think that's an important conversation to have, because as a young kid, we aren't completely, I think, aware of the impact of social structures on us, because, like, we're constantly going back, like, we usually hear the terminology like primary agent of socialization, and that is our parents, that's our family. So if anything, we go back to that, but we fail to realize that there's larger structures at play constantly. So if I were to say to teachers at that time, I wish, like, you need to really understand that, like, I don't get information, for instance, on sexual health the same way as my white counterpart would. That was a whole other mess. Like, as a kid going through that, there's a lot of questions, because it's a very, like, hush-hush, kind of like, you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about relationships, And yeah, like, it's just, in many ways, I think these like, gender and race has influenced the way I not just present myself, but I be at home with myself.